Good morning, everyone. In the last session, we started discussion related to strategy design pattern. Strategy design pattern is a behavioral design pattern. It is used to develop our applications with loosely coupling. Strategy design pattern means when we have several algorithms to execute, we can choose one algorithm at runtime. And if you follow strategy design pattern, then your classes will become loosely coupled. So what are the rules of the strategy design pattern? Strategy design pattern telling that favor composition over inheritance. Favor composition over inheritance. And the second one, code to interfaces instead of implementation classes. Third one, code should be open for extension and code should be closed for modification. So when you want to communicate from one class to another class, favor composition over inheritance. Blindly don't go for inheritance, try to use the composition. Code to interfaces instead of implementation classes. That means don't talk from one class to another class directly, always use interfaces for the communication purpose. Always your code should be open for extension and code should be closed for modification. That means without affecting existing functionality, we should be able to add the new functionality for our application, or we should be able to modify the existing functionality of our application. So these are the three principles of strategy design pattern. Now, our Spring Core module suggesting the developers to follow strategy design pattern to develop the classes so that Spring Core can easily manage the dependencies among the classes with a loosely coupling. So yesterday I have taken one requirement. So I want to develop one restaurant application. There is a class called bill collector. Bill collector want to collect the bill from the customer. Customers can do the payment in several ways. One is through credit card, second one is through debit card, third one is through MX card, and fourth one is through UPI payment. Now, if a bill collector is directly talking to credit card or a debit card, then the classes will become tightly coupled. So to make this communication with loosely coupling, I'm creating one interface. My bill collector class is talking to interface. Interface is having several implementations. For the interface, I'm taking a reference variable in the collector class. Interface reference variable can hold implementation class object. Interface reference variable can hold implementation class object. Are you able to understand how the classes are getting developed here and why we are using an interface, why we are using composition, why I'm not using inheritance, why I'm using composition, and why I'm using interfaces? Are you guys able to understand? Bill collector is having a reference variable, nothing but composition. Bill collector is not extending the properties. There is no inheritance. Bill collector is having an interface reference variable. My code is talking to interfaces instead of the classes directly. My code is using composition instead of inheritance. My code is open for extension and it is closed for modification. Got it? Fine. Now let us create a simple Java project and understand how we are going to develop this new Java project. I'm not taking Spring as of now. I'm going to create a simple Java project only. So 0303 bill payment application. 03 bill payment application. Click on next, click on finish. I created one normal Java project bill payment application. Go to SRC. Let us create one interface. Let us create one interface in dot Ashok IT. Interface name I'm taking as iPayment. Interface name I'm taking as iPayment. Inside this interface, I'm taking a method public string pay. Public string pay double some amount. So like this, I have taken iPayment method, iPayment interface. In the iPayment, I have taken pay method. So in that pay method, I have parameter. It is a interface. In this interface, I'm writing one abstract method. Now let's go to implementation class. So here I'm taking a class called credit card payment. Credit card payment is implementing an interface called iPayment interface. Click on OK, click on finish. Now here you can write the logic for credit card payment. Logic for credit card payment. Now I'm going to return payment successful through credit card. Just I'm returning a message. Payment successful through credit card. So this is one class. There is one interface called iPayment. For the interface, I'm writing a implementation class. Credit card payment implements iPayment. Now let me create one more class called debit card payment. Let me create one more class called debit card payment. Debit card payment is also implementing that interface called iPayment. Click on finish. Now here also system.out.println, or else I can return directly. Here I can say logic for debit card payment. Logic for debit card payment. Here I'm going to return payment successful through debit card. Payment successful through debit card. For credit card payment, there is one implementation class. For a debit card payment, there is one implementation class. Similarly, you can create a class for UPI payment also. New class called UPI payment. UPI payment. This is also going to implement this interface. UPI payment. Here, logic for UPI payment, and I'm saying that payment successful through UPI. Payment successful through UPI. Fine. I'm taking three implementations. For my interface. Are you guys clear what I have done? Are you guys clear what I have done so far? I have taken one interface with a name called iPayment. I have taken one interface with a name called iPayment. Then credit card payment class implemented that interface, overriding the pay method. Debit card payment class implementing that interface, overriding the pay method. UPI payment class implementing that interface, overriding pay method. Now, if you see this diagram, one interface is having multiple implementations. Is it possible in the Java? Is it possible? Can we implement one interface in multiple Java classes? Can we implement one interface in multiple Java classes? Is it possible or it is not possible? It is possible. One interface can be implemented by multiple Java classes. Same thing I have done. Now let us develop bill collector. Now let us develop bill collector class, new class. I'm taking a class with a name called bill collector. Bill collector class is having a method called collect payment. Public void collect payment, collect payment. Now here I'm having some double amount, double amount. Now here directly I can do like this. Directly I can do like this. Credit card payment CCD is equal to new credit card payment, new credit card payment, and I can do that CCD dot pay amount. Is it valid? Credit card, there is a spelling mistake. Credit card, yeah, credit card payment. Is it valid? Valid code only, but problem is there. What is the problem? What is the problem? What is the problem? It is tightly coupled. It is tightly coupled. It is valid, but tightly coupled. Right now, how to achieve loosely coupling? Can you tell me how can I achieve loosely coupling? My bill collector class is directly talking to credit card payment class, so it is tightly coupled. My bill collector class is directly talking to credit card payment, so it is tightly coupled. So is this the recommended way to develop the classes? Is this the recommended way to develop the classes, or it is not recommended way to develop the classes? It is not the recommended way to develop the classes. So now we need to implement our classes with a loosely coupling. For that, I'm going to take one variable called private iPayment payment. I am taking one interface. Now what I will do is payment dot pay amount, payment dot pay amount status system dot out dot println of status. Payment dot pay amount, I've got the status, then a status I'm printing on the console. Now see here, my bill collector class is talking to any class directly, or my bill collector class is talking to interface directly. My bill collector class is talking to implementation class, or my bill collector class is talking to interface. My bill collector class is talking to interface. Am I using inheritance? Am I using inheritance? No. Am I directly creating the object? Am I directly creating the object? No. Am I talking to any class directly? Am I talking to any class directly? No. That means, can I say that my class is loosely coupled with other classes? My class is not talking to any other class directly. My class is loosely coupled. My class is loosely coupled. So can we say that we are following strategy design pattern to develop these classes? Can we say that we are following strategy design pattern to develop these classes? Yes, we are following strategy design pattern to develop these classes. Okay, now bill collector class is available. Bill collector class is talking to iPayment interface. iPayment interface is having several implementation classes. Now, here, can I say that payment is equal to null by default, null value? It is an instance variable. What is the default value for instance variables, guys? What is the default value for instance variables? Based on the data type. Based on the data type, it is going to initialize the default value. Whenever the object is created for the bill collector, then this payment variable will be initialized with the default value. Whenever the object created for the bill collector, iPayment variable, iPayment interface payment variable, it is interface reference variable, it is an instance variable in the bill collector. Whenever the object is created for the bill collector, this variable will be initialized with the default value. So default value will be null. Now when I call this method null dot method, it is going to give null pointer exception. Null dot method, it is null pointer exception. Now let us try to execute this method. Class, I'm taking this class as a test class. Let me create a main method. Let me create a main method. Bill collector, bill collector BC is equal to new bill collector. Bill collector BC is equal to new bill collector. Bill collector dot collect payment. Now payment is 1500, something like this. Something like this. Now I have a test class. Inside the test class, I'm creating object for the bill collector and I'm calling collect payment. When I call this method, it will go and execute this logic. In this logic, I have payment.pay. What is payment? Payment is a reference variable belongs to interface. That variable doesn't have any value, so default value will be initialized. Default value for the payment variable will become null value. Null dot method null pointer exception. Null dot method null pointer exception. Now see this. See this. What is the problem that we are going to get here? The code is in the debug mode. Now, can you see that we got the null pointer exception? Can we see we got null pointer exception? At which line we got the null pointer exception? Bill collector class collect payment method bill collected at Java 9th line. It is displaying clearly line number 9. So this line is giving null pointer exception. Why it is giving null pointer exception? Payment to dot to pay. Payment to dot to pay. Payment is a variable belongs to interface. This variable doesn't have any initialization. Do, do you have the logic to initialize the variable interface reference variable? We don't have the logic to initialize the interface reference variable. Guys, can you tell me? Do we have the logic to initialize the interface reference variable in this class? Or we don't have the logic to initialize the interface reference variable in this class? We don't have the logic to initialize interface reference variable in this class. So as we don't have the logic to initialize the variable, that variable will be initialized with the default value called null. Null dot method, it is giving null pointer exception. It is giving null pointer exception. Now tell me, I want to execute this code without getting null pointer exception. I want you to analyze this and tell me the solution. I want you guys to do analysis and tell me this code. Can you analyze and can you modify the code and can you send me that code? Yeah, I'm giving 2 minutes of time. So please analyze, modify this class code. We need to modify this class so that we should not get the null pointer exception. I'm giving 2 minutes time. Please analyze and tell me. Yeah, guys, got the solution? You got the solution? People are telling that do the null check. Some people are telling that do the null check so that you will not get the null pointer exception. Some people are telling that write the try catch block so that we can handle the exception. No, those are not the solutions here. The solution is we have to initialize this variable with a implementation class object to do the payment. Are you guys getting my point? What is the solution for this problem? What is the solution for this problem? My method collect payment method is calling payment.pay. So which approach it has to use to collect that payment? Which approach it has to use to collect that payment? We have to initialize this variable. Now tell me how many ways we can initialize this variable now? Before calling the collect payment method, the class test class, which is calling the collect payment method, if it is calling the collect payment method directly, collect payment method is using payment.pay. Payment is a variable which doesn't have any value, so it is going to give null pointer exception. It is going to give null pointer exception. In order to avoid that null pointer exception, we have to initialize payment variable. How many ways we can do the initialization of this variable, guys? Can you tell me? How many ways I can initialize this variable now so that I can resolve that null pointer exception? This variable we will initialize by using setter method. This variable we will initialize by using setter method. Public void set payment. I'm taking payment as a parameter. This dot payment is equal to payment. This dot payment is equal to payment. Able to understand why I'm writing a setter method here? Setter method is used to set the value for payment variable. What is the payment variable data type? Payment variable data type is a iPayment. iPayment is a interface. Interface having several implementations. Interface reference variable can hold implementation class object. So I am initializing this variable by using setter method. I'm initializing this variable by using setter method. Are you guys able to follow me? Why I'm writing a setter method? Tell me why I'm writing a setter method here. Why I'm writing a setter method here? To set the value for variable. Which variable? Payment variable. What payment variable is expecting? Payment variable belongs to interface. It is expecting implementation class object. It is expecting implementation class object. Now, this payment interface is having several implementations. Any implementation class object you can pass as a parameter to the setter method. That implementation class object will be stored to payment variable. Then payment.pay. That implementation class object will be initialized and it is going to call the pay method. So now go to test class. In the test class, before calling this method, we need to set that bc dot set payment new credit card payment. Is it valid? Is the ninth line is valid? What I am doing in the ninth line? Tell me what I am doing in the ninth line. Injecting credit card object into bill collector. Can I call it as a setter injection? Can I say that I'm injecting one class object into another class by using setter method? Now run this program, right click, run as Java application. Now, are we getting the output successfully? Payment is successful through credit card. Payment is successful through credit card. Is it valid now? Is my bill collector is valid? My bill collector is tightly coupled with any payment. My bill collector is loosely coupled with the payment. My bill collector is tightly coupled with the payment. My bill collector is loosely coupled with the payment. Tightly coupled. Where is tightly coupling with the bill collector? Bill collector is loosely coupled only, right? Is my bill collector talking to credit card, debit card, UPI directly? My bill collector is not talking to any class directly. My bill collector class is not talking to any payment directly. It is talking through interface. It is talking through interface. Whoever want to do execute this collect payment, they should inject the object by using setter method. Now, the process of injecting one class object into another class object through setter method is called as setter injection. Guys, can you tell me what is a setter injection? Can you tell me what is a setter injection? I want you to type in the chat. What is a setter injection? What is a setter injection? People are not responding. People are not responding. I want everyone to type the answer. What is setter injection? 10 people replied. Only 10 people are replying in the chat. Remaining people are sleeping. I got 18 responses, 19 responses. Guys, please respond, be active, participate in the session. These are the fundamental concepts to understand the Spring and Spring Boot. Very, very, very important. I am preparing the base for you to teach Spring. I'm preparing the base for you to teach the Spring. Without having the knowledge on this design pattern and these concepts, you can't understand the IOC and DI. Right. Here, I am doing setter injection. What is the meaning of setter injection? Setter injection is the process of injecting one class object into another class object. Setter injection is the process of injecting one class object into another class object. This is one way. Similarly, instead of taking this setter, I can take a constructor also. I can take what, guys? Constructor also. Parameterized constructor also I can take. Parameterized constructor also I can take for this class to do the injection. Now here I am writing I payment payment. Now here I am doing initialization. This dot payment is equal to payment. This dot payment is equal to payment. Now tell me, when I write a parameterized constructor, then zero param constructor will not be available for the class. By default, if you don't write any constructor, then by default Java compiler will add a zero param constructor. We call it as a default constructor. Now, if I write my own parameterized constructor, then default constructor will not be generated by the Java compiler. That's why I'm writing a default constructor and I'm writing parameterized constructor also. Now, can I inject this payment variable using setter method? Can I initialize this payment variable using setter method? Initializing this variable means storing the implementation class object into this variable. I can initialize the payment variable using this setter method, or I can initialize the payment variable using constructor. Are you guys able to follow me? Yes. Now go to test class. This is one way to do the injection. This is one way to do the injection. And we have another approach also to do the injection. Bill collector BC1 is equal to new bill collector. It is expecting iPayment interface. Can I create it now? Constructor is expecting iPayment interface as a parameter. Constructor parameter is a interface. Can I create a object for the interface, or I cannot create the object for the interface in the Java? Can we create object for the interface, or I cannot create object for the interface? We cannot create the object for the interface. Can I create the object for implementation class? Yes or no? Yes, now here I can create the object for implementation class, that is new credit card payment. Okay, now here I am commenting this setter method concept. Now I am creating object by using parameterized constructor. For that parameter, I am passing credit card object. So parameterized constructor I am using to create the object. For that constructor, I am passing credit card object as a parameter. Then what is the logic available in the constructor? Whatever the implementation class object passed as a parameter to this constructor, that object will be initialized to current class instance variable. This dot payment is equal to payment. Here I am initializing the variable through constructor. Here I'm initializing the variable through setter. If we inject object into variable through setter method, it is called as setter injection. If we inject object through constructor, that is called as constructor injection. Are you guys able to understand what I am doing here and what I am doing here? Now here also same thing, injecting credit card object into bill collector. This is called as constructor injection. That means using constructor, I'm injecting one class object into another class. If the injection is happened through constructor, that is called constructor injection. If injection means storing one class object into another class object. If injection is happening through setter method, then it is called as a setter injection. Guys, are you able to understand how I am developing this bill collector with loosely coupling and how I am doing the dependency injection? My bill collector class is dependent on the interface. My bill collector is not dependent on the implementation classes directly. If a bill collector directly talk to any implementation class, then those classes will become tightly coupled. So I want to develop my classes with loosely coupling. I want to develop my classes with loosely coupling. So I have taken iPayment interface. I have taken iPayment interface. My bill collector is having an interface reference variable. With interface reference variable, we cannot call the methods directly. We need implementation class object. Now, how to inject implementation class object into bill collector class payment variable? How to inject bill collector class, how to inject implementation class object into bill collector class payment variable. Bill collector class payment variable. Two ways are there. You can do through setter method, create a setter method for the payment variable in the bill collector, then inject a payment class into bill collector through that setter method, then that is called as setter injection. Or else create a parameterized constructor for the bill collector, then inject the object, implementation object using that constructor, then it is called as constructor injection. Are you clear with my point? Are you clear with my point? How to do the dependency injection? What is dependency injection? The process of injecting one class object into another class object is called as dependency injection. In our projects, several classes will be available like this. Now see here, tomorrow, once we go to the real-time project, you can see several classes. One class wants to talk to another class. Can you go for inheritance here? In this requirement, can you go for inheritance? You cannot. because Java does not support for multiple inheritance. Then what? Can you go and create the objects directly by using new operator? Tightly coupling. Then what we need to do? We need to develop the classes with the strategy design pattern. User service, instead of talking to the classes directly, it should talk to interfaces. Interface can have multiple implementations. How to inject the implementation object into interface variable? Either by using setter method or by using constructor. If you use a setter method, then it is called as a setter injection. If you use a constructor, then it is called as a constructor injection. That means we can perform the dependency injection in two ways with loosely coupling. One is by using setter injection. Second one is by using constructor injection. Setter injection means the process of injecting one class object into another class object through setter method of that class. It is called setter injection. Now here in the bill collector class, there is a payment variable belongs to interface. I want to initialize this variable with any one of the implementation object in the runtime. There is a payment variable. Payment variable is belongs to interface. If I want to call the pay bill method, I need the interface implementation object so that by using that object, I can call the pay method. So to this variable, I can store any implementation object. My interface is having 4 implementations. Interface having a reference variable. In that reference variable, I can store any implementation object. But how to store it? For this variable, I can create a setter method and I will pass the parameter of, I will pass the setter method parameter as the object. Then that object will be initialized to this variable. If I initialize this variable by using a setter method, then that is called as a setter injection. Or else I will create one parameterized constructor for the bill collector. Constructor parameter I will take as an interface reference variable. So when I want to create the bill collector object, I will pass the implementation object as a parameter. That object will be initialized to this variable through that constructor. Then it is called as a constructor injection. That means I am injecting one class object into another class object. The process of injecting one class object into another class object is called as dependency injection. That a dependency injection we are doing in two ways. One is through setter injection, another one is through constructor injection. Are you guys clear with my point? What is a dependency injection? What is a setter injection? And what is a constructor injection? Clear? Guys, we are understanding the very important concept of the Spring framework. What is dependency injection? What is a setter injection? What is construct? First of all, am I using Spring in this project? Am I using Spring in this project? No, it is a normal core Java application. Can we do dependency injection in the normal core Java application also? Can we do the setter injection, constructor injection in the normal core Java applications also? Most of the people will think that setter injection, constructor injection introduced by the Spring framework, only IOC container can do that setter injection, constructor injection. No, in the normal core Java also, you can do that setter injection and you can do that constructor injection. When you have that confidence in that subject, yes, setter injection means injecting one class object into another class through setter method. Injecting one class object into another class through constructor, it is called constructor injection. With a normal core Java, I'm able to explain you what is a setter injection, what is constructor injection, why we are going for setter injection, why we are going for a interface. These are the fundamentals. These are the best coding standards that you need to follow while developing the classes. How many of you know that we can implement a code like this with the setter method, constructor method to achieve loosely coupling before today's class? Few people know that, few people don't know. Few people thought that Setter constructor means only Spring framework we introduced that. Few people told that only few people told that only few people thought that only in the Spring framework we can do setter injection and a constructor injection. Forget about Spring. First of all, we did not enter into the Spring. I'm teaching you one design pattern that is called strategy design pattern. Forget about the Spring. Spring will come later. Spring framework will come later. First, we need to be strong in the fundamentals of the programming. How to develop the classes with loosely coupling, why we are taking the interfaces, how to initialize this interface variable, why this setter method is required, why this constructor is required. Now, here, instead of credit card payment, I can take a debit card also. I can take a debit card payment also. Now, run this, run as Java application, payment successful through debit card. Now, can you tell me, here, my bill collector is tightly coupled with any payment, or my bill collector is loosely coupled with the payment process now? Bill collector is tightly coupled with any payment, or bill collector is loosely coupled now? Bill collector is tightly coupled, or bill collector is loosely coupled? Bill collector is 100% loosely coupled. If you want a credit card, you initialize that credit card object into this variable. Either you call setter, or you go for constructor, you inject that object. If you want credit card payment, then inject credit card object. If you want debit card payment, then inject debit card object. If you want UPI payment, inject the UPI payment object. Inject UPI payment object. Are you clear with my point? Are you clear with my point now? So tomorrow, if customer want to do with credit card payment, then credit card object will be injected to bill collector either through setter method or through constructor. If customer want to pay with UPI, then UPI payment object will be injected to bill collector either through setter method or through constructor. If a payment object is injected to bill collector, that is called dependency injection. Payment, there are several payment options are available. One payment object should be injected to bill collector in the runtime. So there are several algorithms available. We can choose one algorithm at runtime, that is called strategy. Behavior is going to change in the runtime. Behavior is going to change in the runtime. Now see here, can I say this collect payment method is a polymorphic method? Guys, can I say collect payment method is a polymorphic method? Always it is doing the payment with one approach, or payment can happen dynamically. Now this payment.pay, is it a static method, or it is a static execution, or it is a dynamic execution? Payment.pay is a static execution, or it is a dynamic execution? It is a dynamic execution. It is a polymorphic method. It is a polymorphic method. Sometimes it will call credit card pay method. Sometimes it will call debit card pay method. Sometimes it will call UPI payment method. How this method behavior is changing? How this method behavior is changing? If you inject credit card object, then it will execute credit card payment method. If you inject debit card object, debit card payment method will execute. If you inject UPI payment will execute. Can I say that this collect payment is a polymorphic method? Depends upon the object you initialize, the implementation is going to change. People will ask you where you have used inheritance in the project, where you have used polymorphism in the project, where you have used abstract classes in the project. I will answer all those questions. Where to use oops in our project? Where to use oops in our project? Can I say this is a polymorphism based on the object you initialize? Based on the object you initialize, this implementation is going to execute. So now today we just completed dependency injection. Am I using IOC container? Am I doing manual dependency injection? Am I using IOC container to perform the dependency injection? Am I doing manual dependency injection? Come on, BC dot collect payment. This is 1400. So here through setter injection and through constructor, this is manual dependency injection we are doing. If I use IOC container, I am creating bill collector object. I'm creating credit card object. So I'm doing setter injection. I'm doing constructor injection. Actually, as a programmer, I am doing this setter constructor injections. But when we go for a Spring, IOC container will do this. Whatever the logic I'm writing in the test class, that logic will be taken care by IOC container. As a programmer, I am doing the setter injection and constructor injection. So tomorrow, IOC container, I will tell IOC container to perform this dependency injection. That is the only difference. Now, when I use a Spring framework, I am not going to change anything in the bill collector class. Just my test class will be changed. Here, I am doing this injection. Tomorrow, I will remove this injection. I will write a IOC container. I will start the IOC container to start the dependent, to perform the dependency injection. So today, forget about IOC, just understand what is dependency injection, what is a setter injection, and what is a constructor injection. Are you guys comfortable with that process? Are you guys comfortable with that process now? I'm going to send you this class in the Telegram. So what is this bill collector class I have created, how setter is created, how constructor is created, and I will give you a test class also, how I have tested this with the setter, with the constructor. Interface implementations I'm not giving, guys, that you can create. Could you please practice this before coming to tomorrow session? Could you please practice this before coming to tomorrow session? Bill collector with the interface, setter method, and constructor. A test class which is used to test it through setter. I'm inject dependency injection through setter method, dependency injection through constructor. Okay. Yeah, please practice that before coming to tomorrow session. So tomorrow we'll understand more about it. Okay, guys, today we have a demo for DevOps at 8 a.m. So I'm stopping this class now. So any questions, I will take it in the tomorrow session. So please practice before coming to tomorrow. Thank you. We'll see you in the tomorrow session. Interface and implementation, just one interface, 4 implementations. I will send in the Telegram. Okay. Thank you, guys.